So today we take a look at this blog feature from the Zappa template, and then we create some new features like a create feature where we can create new blog posts with a dynamic slug. And then we have also this beautiful what you see is what you get editor. And we have a password field because not everybody should be able to create content on our blog. And then when we click on create, we see this blog post here in our list, and then when we click on this we see our blog post, and then we also create an edit function so that we can just edit this blog post. And when we know the password we can click on save, and then we can see our edited blog post. So let's start to create this project. To do this, I download the Zappa template into my project folder. When this is done, I just run npm-i to install my dependencies. And when my dependencies are installed, I can run npm run dev to run my development server. And then I can go to localhost 3000. Yay, great success! So now I can click on this blog here, this is a link, and then I see some blog posts. So where are these blog posts coming from? So for this I go into my navigation under source, routes, blog, and there I see some files. So when I am at this blog page here, this is my index.svelte file, and then if I take a look at this file, I see that here I loop over some posts, and then I show these links with the title and a slug. So where are these posts coming from? So when I take a look at this preload function, then I see that this .fetch blog.json gets called, and then I take the JSON from this fetch result. So I need to take a look at this blog.json file. But when you look here in this blog folder, you don't see a blog.json file. And this is because the folder name is blog, and then when you call blog.json, it takes the index.json.js file. But what we also could do here is just moving this index.json.js file, for example, outside this blog folder, and then we could just rename this index.json.js to blog.json.js, and this also should work. So now when I reload this page, you see that this is the same thing. But okay, to keep everything in my blog folder, I just move it again into my blog folder, and I rename it to index.json.js. So this is the same, it's just for a better understanding where this blog.json comes from. And now you can say, hey, but there is blog.json, but where is this .js file? And this is because Zappa removes this JS file, and then inside this JS file you see this get function, and because this is a get request, this code here gets executed, and this code just sends some headers like this content type, and then we send our content. And this content is just some JSON stringified, so it's just a map over our posts, and these posts come from the underscore post.js file. So if we want to see our posts, we can just go to this underscore posts.js file. Okay, so now for example, if we want to change the title of this what is Zappa post, we can just change this title in this underscore post.js file here, and then when I save this, I see that the title changed on my page. So working on this JavaScript file to manage my blog is a little bit ugly, so I decided to switch to the Firebase real-time database to manage my blog posts. So I created a new project, it's Zappa-blog, and there inside I create a new web application and I call this application blog. Click on register and that's it. So in this video I can skip these scripts here because we will not use the Firebase client side directly in our project, so I just click on continue. Then I go to database and there I can scroll down to real-time database because the real-time database makes it really easy to work with JSON. And then I start in logged mode and I go to rules and there I set write to false, or I let it false, and I set read to true. And then I click on publish because everybody should be able to read my blog posts. But now I need to migrate my blog posts from the _post.js file to this database. So to do this, I go to my project overview settings, I go to service account, and there I can download a new JSON file, so generate new private key. And when I click this downloads a JSON file. And then I drag this JSON file into my project in the root folder. And then we need to add this file name from this JSON file in our gitignore file, so that this file will never appear on GitHub or another place. So I update my gitignore file. And then I go in my project into the routes folder, and there inside I create a new file, migrate blog posts.js. And in this migrate blog post.js file I create a script to take my blog posts from my existing file, and then I will push these files to Firebase. So to do this I need to install Firebase admin. So in my console I type npm i --save Firebase -admin, and then I take the code from the Firebase homepage to initialize my Firebase admin SDK. So I copy this code and then I change it to ES6, so instead of requiring Firebase admin I import admin from Firebase -admin, and for my service account I also import my service account from, and then I need to go back in my path, so //////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// blah 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 .json. Okay, so here I import this JSON, and then here I have my initialization, and then I need to make some changes here. So I will always initialize them. I will only initialize this admin script when I get this page. So to do this I need to export a function get. So this only gets executed when we have a get request on this route, and then we get a week, a res, and a next. And then inside this function I initialize my Firebase admin SDK, and then I can work with Firebase. So here I can, for example, initialize my database, let db, and this admin.database, and then I define my reference, let dbref, and this is just db.ref, and I will use the root folder, so that's it. And then I will put all my existing blog posts into this database. So to do this, I need to take my blog posts first, so I also import my posts from, and then I go to my blog folder, underscore posts, and then I take my posts and I map over these posts. So I have each post, and now I want to put each post to my database. So I take my DB reference, database reference, and there I just set my post, and I will put each post in a sub route or a child. So I need to add child, and the name of this child will be post.slug. And then I hope that this works. So before I test this, I need to put this map over my posts into a promise.all. This means that I go over each post and then I set it to my database, and this returns a promise. And when I run promise all, this gets all executed at the same time. And then I make my function asynchronous, because then I can just await this promise, and when this promise is done, I just take my response and I say res.end. So I say that here it should return something to my client, and I will just send a text done, and this means that my migration is done. Yay! But now when I save this file, I will get an error message. And the reason for this error message is that I import a JSON file, but Rollup does not know how to handle this. So here we see this message: note that you need at Rollup plugin -JSON. So I run npm I --save dev, and then this Rollup / plugin JSON, plugin module, whatever. Okay, so and then when this is done, I go to my Rollup config file, and there I import JSON from Rollup plugin JSON, and then I can add this JSON to my server plugins. And then when I save this and I run npm run dev again, at least there is no error. So now I go to migrate blog posts, and then I see this done text here. So now I go into my real-time database at the Firebase homepage, and there I see under data my blog posts. Yay! And when I click on this plus icon, I see the HTML, the slug, and the title. So this looks very interesting and very nice. Okay, so now to get my blog posts from Firebase, I can copy this URL here. And then when we go to this URL and we put .json at the end, we see our JSON data from Firebase. Then we can copy this URL with .json extension, and then we go into our routes blog index.svelte file, and then we can replace this blog.json with our Firebase JSON URL. But then we need also to change this post, because before we got our posts like this. Blog.json was something like this, post. And now from Firebase we get something like this, slug post, slug post. So we need to go over this slug, and then we should just return our post as before. So maybe it was not a good idea to change the style of my JSON file, but now it's too late because I don't want to repeat all this again. And now here is a part of this video where I tried to explain this 100 times, so I cut this video some million times, and it's impossible to explain what I'm doing now, so just look at it and try to understand what I'm doing. So here I don't get my posts, but I get the data from Firebase. So this is a slug with post object, maybe, and then I say object.keys to get the keys from my slug with post object, and then I map over this slug with post object. So then I get all my slugs. So when I do this here, I get something like this. And then when I map over this, I get my slug, but inside this object here I have also the post data. So I take this object, and then because the slug is the index of this object, I put the slug here inside, and then I get my posts, hopefully. So I define this let posts, and my posts should be this one. So when I save this, go to the blog page and I click on reload, I see at least that there is no error, and I see my blog posts. So now I go to my Firebase console and I change the title of this blog post. Then I go back into my blog, click on reload, and I see changed. So this here comes now from Firebase instead of my local server. And when I click on this post, I see this blog post, but I see the old title. So I need also to change this file here. So my blog and then the slug file. So to do this, I go to routes blog, and then I have this slug.svelte file, and there I usually fetch my data from blog/params.slug. So this is the same style of code as we had before. So here now I can change this. So I go back to my Firebase project, I copy this URL again, and here I usually can just paste this URL, and then I can say slash, and then I have my slug.json. And now when I save this file here and I go back to my project, I see that then I get the data from Firebase. So now we have modified our blog to take the data from Firebase. Yay! Okay, so now we can create for each blog post different actions, what we want to do with this blog post. For example, we could add a route to edit this blog post or create a new blog post, or do something else. So to do this, I go into my source route blog folder, and there inside I create a new folder, and I call I create a new folder, and I call this folder slug because it's my slug from the blog post. And then inside this slug folder I move my slug.svelte file and also my slug.json file. But to be honest, I can just delete this slug.json.js file because we do this now with Firebase. So I click on delete, and I do the same also for my index.json.js because now my blog posts come from Firebase. So I click on delete, and then I need to modificate, yes, maybe I need to change this file name from slug.svelte to index.svelte because now my folder name is dynamic. And then when I go back on my project, I see that everything works. So now I can create different files. For example, I can create a new file, edit.svelte, and I create a new file _form.svelte, and then I move my block view, how it should look like, from this index.svelte file inside my form.svelte file. So my _form.svelte will be something like a component. So I create a script tag, and there I export post, and then in my index.svelte file here I import this _form as a component. So import, I call it block view from ./form.svelte, and then I add this block view as a tag, and then I say post is post, and then I save this, and then I go into my edit.svelte file, and there I do the same. So I just copy it from my index.svelte file, but here I just make an h1 edit to see if this really works, and then I go to /edit, and then I see here my title edit. So now in my form.svelte I can create another variable, export let is edit mode, and by default this is false. But then in my edit.svelte file I can say is edit mode is true, and then I can add a what you see is what you get editor inside this form.svelte file. So to do this I go to quilljs.com because this looks very nice. So I want to create what you see is what you get editor like this here. So I go to download now, and there I see that I can use a CDN, but I will use the npm version because I will dynamically import Quill only when I'm in this edit mode. So I go into my console, I npm install Quill 136 --, save, and then I can go to the playground to see what I need to do. So I need to define Quill. So I run my server again, npm run dev, and then here in my script tag I import onMount from Svelte because Quill should only be loaded when we are on the client side. So I take this function onMount, and then there inside I execute some asynchronous code because I need to import Quill. And then when we take a look in our node modules and we search for Quill, we see that here we have this dist folder, so I go there, dist, and there inside we have quill.js, and this gives us the module. So when you take a look at this, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but okay, so this export blah 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 blah. Okay, so that's not so important for the moment, so I just say const quill module is await import quill.js like this, and I don't need to add .js. Okay, and then because now we await this import, then we have our quill module, so then we can define const quill, and quill is then the default export from this module. Then I copy my example from the playground here, and then I also need to import this snow theme, and I can also import this CSS dynamically, so I copy this import command, and here I don't write an await before because we don't need to await the CSS because it will appear when it's loaded. Okay, so the name of the theme is quill.snow.css, so here I import quill.snow.css, and then because we only want to show this when we are in edit mode, I make also an if condition. If is edit mode, then we do all this stuff. So I move this inside my if condition, and then I go to my edit page and I cross my fingers, and when I reload this page I see quill is not a constructor. Yay! So this did not work. So now I go to my console.log and then I check quill. What's going on here? So quill is just undefined. Okay, so quill, but here I define quill. So here I say new quill, quill module default. I reload this, and then I can check quill is undefined default default. Here I see my problem. I used quill module.default instead of default. Okay, so that's creepy, but okay, default like this. And then I need to define my editor container. So I go here in my div where I have my content, and then I say this has the ID editor container, and I need to remove this dash. And then when I go back into my home page and click on reload, yay! I see this beautiful what you see is what you get editor. So this looks very nice, and then when I go to the normal link without /edit, I see my normal blog post, so this works. Yay! So now I need a way to save changes on my blog post. So this looks very nice, yes. But I need to save this to Firebase when I make some changes. So to do this, I add a new button. So here in my code, in my form.svelte, I check if I'm in is edit mode, and when this is the case, I create a button, save, and when we click on this button, we want to execute a function, save changes. And then I need to define this save changes as a function. So I go into my script tag and I say, oops, save changes is a function, and in this function we need to get our HTML of this editor. So maybe I define quill outside the script tag, let quill editor, and then here where I create a new instance I can say quill editor is new quill editor container, and then to get my HTML content, and this information comes from Stack Overflow, is just console log, and there I take my quill instance, and there I can take the root.inner HTML. So now I click on save again and I see some HTML, and now I need to push this HTML to Firebase, but because I have no authentication on this project, I will just check the authentication on my server side, and then I will push this content with Firebase admin to my database. So I create a new input field on this form over my button, password, because I need to check if it's an admin who wants to edit this content. So I create a new input type password, yes, and then I can bind this to a new password variable. So I need to define this at the top, let password, and by default it's an empty string, and then I can also just bind the value instead of the entry element value. So now when something changes on this input field, my password variable will change. Then I make a new line here, br. And then I have my form to edit. I have the password form. So now I need to create a route to post changes on this form. So I go into my routes folder, into blog slug, and there inside I create a new file, and I call this file index.js. And then in this index.js I need to import Firebase admin. Import admin from Firebase minus admin, because I need to send the changes into my database. And the request that I will make is a put request. So I can export function put, and then I get my request, response, and next. Okay, and then I need to get my slug, because I need to know which blog post I need to update. So const slug is, so this comes from my request params, and then I could use slug, or I can just extract this slug like this, and for the moment I just return something to check if this works. Update. So later I will add my code here to update my database, and then I go again in my form, and then in this form.svelte file I go to my save changes function, and before I just console.logged my inner HTML, and now I will replace this console log with a fetch request where I put my data to my server. So I need to define my address, and this is /blog, and then I need to send my post.slug, because here I get my post object, and there inside I have my slug. And then I need to tell my code that my method is put, because I want to update my content. And then I will also tell this fetch request that my headers are something like a content minus type, and this will be application/JSON, and then I will send a body, and my body will be JSON but stringified, and there inside I create an object where I say that my content is my HTML that I console logged here before. So I remove this console log here, and then I will also send my password to my server, and my password is my password variable. So this password variable is binded here with this input field, and then when I click on my save button, I see that this looks a little bit nicer, but I need to make some changes. So I want to get a response from here, and then I will await also this fetch, and to do this I need to make this function asynchronous, async, and this is response, and then for the moment I will just console.log my response. And now on my index.js file here, I need to take this body here. So we need to add body parser to our server. So I stop my server again, and I run npm I ---- save body -parser. And then in my server.js file, I can import JSON from body -parser, and then I need to add this JSON as a middleware. So I need to tell Polka that we use JSON. And then when I save this and I go back in my index.js file, and then instead of res or res.end, I try to make something like res.json, because I want to return JSON. And for the moment I will just return my body that I get in this request. So I answer with request.body, and then when I post my form, so I click on save, I see that res.json is not a function, but this is not a problem, because I think this is just a problem with Polka. So I will just replace Polka with Express. So I run npm I ---- save Express, and then I replace Polka with Express, rerun my server again, npm run dev, save my form again, and then there is no error. And when I click on this network tab in my debugging tools, I see in the preview also my response, and there I have my HTML again and my password. So now I need to check my password, and then I can put my content to Firebase. So I go back in my index.js file, and there I define my let content, and my content is in this request.body, and I also get a password, and this password should be if password is 123. This is my super secret password. And then to update my content in Firebase, I need to initialize my Firebase application, because I will delete this migrate blog post file later. And so I steal just some code from here. So one step is to copy this initialization code, and then I go back in my index file and I will initialize Firebase maybe just here, and then I need to import my service account, yes, there it is, .json. So here I initialize Firebase admin, and then in this function here I will define my database, let db, and this is admin.database, and then I define my reference, and this is db.ref, and there I can call my child, and this will be the slug, and then I can use my reference, and I will update my reference, and I will update the HTML, and this is my content that comes from my body, and then I make this function asynchronous, and then I await my update, and when my update is done I will return a response.json state okay, and when my password is not 123, so when it's wrong, then I will just return status password wrong. Then back in my form.svelte I can take my response, and then I can say that I get some JSON result from this response JSON, but there I need to await this JSON, and then when I have my response I can just alert my JSON result dot state, and now when I save this and I go into my form and I click on save, I see okay, so this is my status, and when I give a wrong password and I click on save, I see password wrong, and also my content should not change. So when I change this to blah blah and I click on save and I go to Firebase, I see that my content did not change. So that's it for this video, but before I stop this video I will just change my password to blah underscore blah underscore blah, and then I will build my project. So I run npm run build, and then I search for blah underscore blah underscore blah in my project to see if my password is nowhere on the client side. So I see that here it's only in my server.js file and in my index.js file. So here in this put function here, so also on the server side. Okay, because when we have code like this on our client side, that's not really great. Okay, and then another thing, so when I started this video I had also the idea to create new blog posts, so maybe I will also do just this. So I will take this put function and replace it with a post function, and then I will take a slug and a title, a content and a password, and then I will just keep this because it's just to give you an idea. So when we create new content we can use set in Firebase, and then here I will set my HTML, I will set my title to title, and I will also give a slug, and there are also extensions to give a slug or to create a slug from a title, but that's not part of this video. So here I need to add title and slug in my form when I create something. So here I go into my routes block slug folder, and there I create a new file, or maybe I just copy my edit file, copy, paste, and then I rename this to new.svelte, and maybe this should not be in my slug folder because the title or the slug does not exist at this moment. So I move my file one level up in my block folder here, and then I need to make some modifications here. So yes, I need to remove this fetch here, because at the moment where we create a new post we have no post. So I can just remove this script tag here, and then instead of edit I show new, and then because I have no post I need to create an empty post. So this is an empty object where I have my HTML, and this is an empty string. I have my title, and this is an empty string, and I have my slug, and this is also an empty string. And yes, I maybe can also leave this in edit mode, or I create another mode, is create mode, and then in my block view I need to add some things like my like my title and my slug. So I go into my form, but I see that my form is in my slug folder. So here I need to add my slug folder because the form.svelte file is stored there. And then here I export let is create mode, and this is false by default. And then I need to make some checks. So when I'm in edit mode or when I am in is create mode, then I will load Quill, and then I have this save changes function here, and I will just copy this function. I know there are better ways, but okay, create post, and then here I will use post instead of put, and here I also need to send my title and my slug. So title and slug. So to do this I need also input fields to define my title and my slug. So when I'm here in edit mode, edit mode, or in is create mode, then I will show an input field with the type text, and here the value will be title, but because I have my post object here I can just use post.title, and then I can create an else. When we are not in edit mode or create mode, then we just show our title, and then we close this if condition, and then when we are in edit mode, in create mode only, then we show also our slug, post.slug, and that's it. So here I remove this, and then here I show title, and then I need to verify this because I changed so much things here. Okay, so first I need here to set our title to post.title, and my slug to post.slug. And then the question is, because sometimes I used content and sometimes I used HTML, I hope that I did this everywhere right, so I just start my development server, npm run dev, and I go now to blog/new, and then I see this SID cannot be reached, and here I see identifier slug already been declared, blah 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 blah. Okay, so blah 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 blah. This is yes, in my index file here somewhere. Okay. Yes, I have already my slug defined here, and then here I define it again. So maybe this makes no sense. Yes, this makes no sense. So I just remove the slug from here, and then I save this, and then I go and below my page again, and now I see new, and I have a title and a slug, test, post, slug, test, and test content, and then I forgot to create a button to create my content, so I need to go back to my form, and there I need to create a button. So here I have my check if I'm in edit mode, and there I add an or is create mode, and in both cases I want to show this password field, and my save button will appear if I'm in is edit mode. So when I'm in is edit mode, I show my save button, and then when I am in my is create mode, I call another function, and the function name was create post. Then I rename this button to create, and then I go back to my home page, and then I click on create, and I see okay, so this looks not so bad. And then I go here in my Firebase application, and I see new slug, HTML, epic content, slug and title. So this looks not so bad. So when I now go to /blog, I see my new title blog post, and when I click on this blog post, I see new title and epic content, and then I can go to /edit to change this title, and I can change this to no epic content blah underscore blah underscore blah, and I click on save, and I have this super nice OK message. And when I go back to this blog post, I see new title and no epic content. So the only thing that I forgot in my index file was to also update my title as in my post function. So I go to my put function where we update our content, and there I also add my title, and my title is title. So I need to check if I post this title also in my body. So I go back in my form.svelte, in my save change function, and there I also need to add the title through post.title. I go again in my edit form, and now I change my title to enter my password, click on save, click on OK, go back into my view, and now my title has changed. So this is very nice. Okay, so that's it for this video. Also don't forget to delete this migrate blog post file because you don't need it anymore. And yes, when this video was helpful for you, please give me a like and subscribe, and you can do whatever you want. And there is no guarantee that this is the best way to do this, and I know that there are missing features and blah 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 blah, but this video is already too long now, so that's it. Thank you and goodbye.